All right. Good evening, gang. Happy Tuesday night. We have made it to 8 o'clock. So here we are. So let's see if we got some screen time. And once you do that, then I'll make this big enough where I can read it and we'll go from there. So let's see what we got. So, YouTube, we're waiting on you. So I'm here. Come on. Tick tock, tick tock. There we go. Here comes. All right. I can Now we'll change this size, make sure you guys can see me. Here we go. Healthy Disrespect, John the Questioner, Adam Hoffman, Lori Martin, Raccoon Eyes Ann, Joe Cook. Joe, I want to ask you, I'm not sure if you're the right person. I'll bring this up in a second. Infinitely blessed. There we go. A whole bunch of this. All right, so y'all can see me, so good deal. So happy Tuesday night. Uh, Been an interesting week so far. Finally, we had some nice weather around here. It's like 75 today, though the winds are making it a little rough to do stuff out here because Mrs. P and I were out the other day picking up all the fallen limbs and the sticks from over the winter because got to get those cleaned up before I can mow the lawn. That's got to be done. But of course, with it as windy as it is, I don't want to be starting a fire out in the yard. We did the other day, but couldn't today because I don't feel like risking catching my house on fire. So, I know somebody said, we'll just keep the fire little. You have no idea how many sticks. I mean, we put 6 side by side loads of sticks in there the other day. Uh, yeah, you're picking up plenty of sticks. So, but yeah, so getting that done. So it's just kind of doing other little things that I've got to get done here soon, but the weather's got to be more than just nice and warm and not raining. It hasn't rained for a few days, so things are drying out. That's good. But hope y'all are having some good weather yourself, if you will, to get out in the yard and start working in the garden or just start doing whatever you want to do. But yeah, that's been pretty much it. It was a nice day in the market today. It's up over 1,000 points. Kind of figured what I was saying last week, we'd see a bounce on this, and now we're seeing a bounce. Uh, who knows what's going on with the war, if you want to call it a war? I just get a kick out of it now. Yesterday it was Spain. Today it's Italy. Great Britain said it. Germany said it that we can't fly planes through their airspace. And I'm just to the point where we've been screaming about this forever is that the people saying, get us out of NATO. If this isn't the whole deal here, Europe, like, we don't want anything to do with this. No, you're not going to use our airspace. You're not going to do anything. But it was amazing how, with everything going on in Ukraine, Europe's going, US, you've got to send money. You've got to send troops. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. Oh, okay. So we can come in to fight your battle. But when we're going to be there, you're like, nope, we have nothing to do with it. Got a problem with that. Germany the other day saying somebody, I think it was the AFD leader, Conservative Party, and they're like, we want all the troops out of Germany, American troops. I'm like, good, fine. We will also take the 40 to $50 billion a year that we dump into the German economy along with us. Good luck speaking Russian. Okay. That's pretty much it. Or Chinese, one of the two, or Farsi, because you're going to get taken over so fast it isn't funny. But, I just get such a kick out of the Europeans that we're supposed to do what they want, but they can't support us. And I hate to remind them about this, but we don't get any oil from Iran. 4% of our oil comes from Saudi Arabia, which doesn't even go through the Straits of Hormuz. Okay. That's it. Your oil, on the other hand, yeah, you kind of need it. But hey, and I love the comment. Well, the Straits of Hormuz were open before Trump started all of this. Yeah, sure. And, the tube blew up in London here about a decade ago too. Remember that? You know? You know, the cat that got raped this week in Italy, yeah, you remember that? All the women and girls that are getting kidnapped and raped in Europe. Remember that? Yeah, we're gonna try to put an end to some of this stuff, but okay, fine. You know, don't participate. That's fine. We won't participate in your defense anymore or your economy anymore. It'll probably take about 2 weeks till they're all crying, going, "You gotta come back. We can't survive without you." You know, kind of like Canada. Uh, but yeah, so be it. So we'll see what happens with that one. But yeah, it's just it looks like this could feasibly end pretty soon, but who knows? You know, didn't think it was going to last a month. Here we are. You know, I love the lies that the propaganda coming out of Iran that Marines are coming in, laying down their weapons and surrendering to the IRGC. We don't even have any boots on the ground yet. You know, or all the morons who are out there. The Americans have lost thousands of lives already. Now, I don't want to see us lose any. We've already lost a couple of dozen, as far as I know. But I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday who works in DC, ironically, and I made to him. I said, we're all going to die, and whether it's from old age or it's cancer or it's a car wreck or whatever. I said, there's some of these guys who are breathing their last breath, going, "I died fighting for something I believe in." And again, you remember that we're an all volunteer army. Okay. So everybody that's there was doing so on their own free will. We all knew the risk when we signed that check up to and including our life, and they died with honor. There's a big difference, than being some suicide bomber who, there's no honor in murder like that. But yeah, all right, that's getting into my beliefs. Agree with me, disagree with me, that's fine, however you want to take it. But that was it. So uh what I wanted to make I got a letter in the mail the other day, physical handwritten letter in the post office box. And one of y'all, and I don't know if you're on a live stream or whatever, because you didn't give me a screen name, so I don't know who it was, gave me a note saying they're from Wisconsin. They're coming down to Tennessee. Their daughter's a cop in La Follette, Tennessee. Did I want to get together for lunch? Guys, I have no problem meeting y'all. A bunch of you guys have met me. You know that. I mean, sometimes it's see me by accident at Tractor Supply or Walmart or Rural King or wherever, and other people I've met for coffee and done that. Some of you guys know that. Okay. But please send me an email so I have some way to get back to you. I'm not calling anybody. All right. Simply put, as soon as my phone number gets out there, I never get off the phone again. All right. And I'm not doing that. Okay. I do value my own privacy a little bit too. If I give my phone number to one person, I got to give it to a million, well, 130,000, and I'm not doing it. All right. So if you have something, I appreciate the letter in the mail, but you got to email me so I have a way to get back to you. Okay. Because that's the only way it's going to happen. But that was that. All right. Other than that, ain't a whole lot of craziness to discuss. I figure we'll leave the floor open for you guys to bring up what craziness you want to talk about. As per normal, no topics are off limits. We've discussed all sorts of stuff. But if you've got a question for me, please, yes, I said cat earlier, CAT. Yes, in Italy, go look it up. There was stories on a African migrant who raped a cat. And yes, the veterinarians there are trying to nurse the cat back to health. I'm not kidding. Uh, Back to where I was. Get into the chat here. If you've got questions for me, please put them in all caps. Nothing new, just like every other channel. Just makes it easier for me to find them here. The only thing I ask is that the only rule we have, and I ask you of this, is that you treat everybody in here with respect. That's everybody in the chat room. That's also me. If you can't follow that rule, then you might as well click the little X in the upper right-hand corner now. Because if you don't want to do it the first time you run your mouth and say something rude to somebody else, we'll do it for you. The mods do an exceptional job of that. It's the only rule we have. Okay. That's it. Nothing else. You can say crazy crap. You can tell me we didn't land on the moon. You can say that 9/11 was an inside job, that Elvis still walks the earth, that Adolf Hitler's still living down in Argentina. That's fine. I don't care. You treat somebody in here with disrespect, that will get you tossed. So, all right, let's get into this Q&A here, and I'm going to scroll on up and see what we want to talk about. Give my brain a work here. That's one of the fun things for me is you guys bounce all over the place with questions, so it's a good brain exercise for me. Prep Rebel, what's a lawn? All I have is desert. Well, I guess I could say the same thing. What for me, a lawn is mowed weeds. So yeah, that's about it. We throw grass seed down in spots and clover and crabgrass, whatever's green on the ground is what I call my lawn around here. I live in the woods. Okay, this is not manicured yards out here. Carolyn Robbins, get a burn barrel to burn the sticks. Basically, that's kind of what my fire pit is kind of a burn barrel because I live on a hill. So when I built the fire pit the other day, it's about 3.5 feet deep. I made a huge circle. It's probably 16 feet around. And then in the middle is about a 4-foot pit. And then I filled it in all with rock. So I have, 8 or 9 feet around it. So anything pops in, it's not in the weeds, grass. But as well as I do, even with the burn barrel, when you get winds blowing, you can pick up an ember or something like that. And considering I live in the woods, I don't want one ember going up in the woods. And the next thing you know, you're turning on the news and there's a fire in Sharps Chapel, Tennessee, that the forest is on fire. And it was my fault. So no, I'm careful about that to make sure I don't do it on windy days. Somebody's always manning the fire. I've got a hose right there to make sure nothing gets away. So I'm very careful about that. Okay. I don't live in California. Let's see. Adam Hoffman, NATO is like the fair weather family that only shows up when there's free food. Yeah, that's a pretty good way of putting it. And they only show up when there's free food and they never bring anything to the party. That's it. Not like I've got to say a whole lot, but yeah, that's a good analogy. That they show up for the barbecue and don't bring anything, and then they drink all the beer. Von Mousetrap, why is the U.S. exporting oil when we're supposedly buying it overseas? I may be incorrect. Okay. And again, there's truth to both of this. We export oil and we buy some of it from Saudi Arabia. And why would we? Okay, first off, you have different grades of oil. That is certainly true. Okay. But then the other thing is you have the economic deal with it is maybe we can get the oil, they're trying to hedge a little bit. Maybe we can get the oil from Saudi Arabia cheaper than we can get it from the United States. Again, we all remember stories during the Iraq War. Granted, this goes back a few years now, but they pay 10 cents a gallon gas. Maybe there's somebody on here watching the channel that's old enough to remember 10 cents a gallon of gas. It ain't me. Okay. Cheapest gas I ever saw when I was a kid was 90 cents. But Yeah, they hedge a little bit in there too. You have the different I mean, you all know the difference between West Texas Intermediate and Brent crude. Okay, you get heavy crude, whole 9 yards. So there's different grades of oil, if you will, too. And again, they're trying to hedge, you know, back and forth. Then you also talk about the volume that can be moved. Okay, we're we're not going to be able to ship enough oil from Saudi Arabia to keep the United States running. If that was 100% of what we had. But then you get countries like Europe where they don't have anything of their own. So it's either get it from Russia or get it from the Middle East or get it from Canada or get it from us. And so, there's the other, you wonder why gas is so much more expensive as in Europe as it is compared to what we pay. And as much as, somebody'd say, well, taxes, California taxes are crazy. The problem with Europe is everything has to be either piped in or shipped in. Where around here, okay, it's our domestic product where they have to let's say I don't know, pick something, Spain or England or wherever, and you want to buy Russian oil. Well, it's got to go through Poland, and it's got to go through Germany, and and then it's got to go through I don't know, pick something, the Netherlands or whatever to get where you go. And every one of those countries is going to take a cut because they're like, well, you're using part of our pipeline, so here's the tax we're adding to it. We don't have that where, gee, we're pumping oil from North Dakota down to Texas, and Kansas and Nebraska aren't going, hey, we're going to tax you on this. So there's that too. Hillbilly Homestead, the EU didn't start the war. I'm not disagreeing with you there. But if we didn't get involved in Ukraine, it would have been over 4 years ago. The war would have lasted 2 weeks. Okay. That would have been Russia would have come in, got done what they needed to do, end of story, war is over. But because Europe begged us to go in there and we sent money, and then we're not going to send rifles, and we sent rifles. We're not going to send armored vehicles, and we sent armored vehicles. We're not going to send planes. We sent planes. We're not going to send missiles. We sent missiles. We just never got to the point of sending troops, thank God. But if it wasn't for us funding that war at Europe's begging, primarily Zelensky twisting everybody else's arm, the war would have been over in 2 weeks. So. Okie Forge, since when is NATO just about the U.S. protecting European interests? Since the end of World War II, pretty much. Okay. And I mean, you just look at Germany, for example. I mean, what was it? We're talking a year ago or whatever. I think it was Germany when they did an audit, and Germany didn't have enough bullets, the military, to last a day in a war. I mean, even then, you look at what was it? The UK. This was a few months ago. Had 6 operable tanks. What the hell are you going to defend with that? And they all got used to, oh, the U.S. they'll pay for everything. But we feed their troops at the restaurants. We house them. They pay taxes here. We just make money off of them. Oh, you actually want us to defend our own country and spend our money to do it? Again, use Ukraine as a perfect example. The United States was funding like 70% of the war in Ukraine. The entire continent of Europe was giving about half of what we were to defend a country in their backyard. So, yeah, it's like when people ask me about Marco Rubio and hey, would he be a good next president? And I'm like, I'm very impressed with Marco Rubio and his foreign policy, but he hasn't told me squat of what his domestic policy is. And to me, that's more important. I don't care what happens in the Middle East. They can kill each other. I don't care. I don't care what happens with Ukraine. It's not my problem. Oh, we've got to feed the starving kids in Kenya. Screw that. Feed the starving kids in Philadelphia. That's what I want to see. And whoever winds up getting my vote in 3 years is going to be the one who tells me how he's going to fix the United States first, again, America first, and tell the rest of these countries to hit the bricks. You're on your own. You're not our problem. You know, it's not my responsibility to keep your economy running. You know, it's just it frustrates the crap out of me. Whoops. And of course, we got to get that shoot to the bottom just as I saw the question. All right, I gotta find where it was. Okay, I'm close. Mitch, what can I do to keep ants out of my garden without using pesticides? Uh, Plant garlic, plant onions, uh, chili powder works. I mean, nothing's going to work as good as a pesticide. I would tell you that right now. Especially, Mrs. P and I were out the other day again when we were doing sticks, and we got into some termites that were in there, and of course they got in the back of the side by side, and so we got out a product that's called Viper, and it's a good exterior bug kill. I mean, it kills everything. Okay, and I found an anthill under my muscadines, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to pour about a quart of that right down in the anthill, and that was it. Because we get fire ants around here, and if you've ever been bit by fire ants, that sucks. And that's what these were. But yeah, when you start, orange oil is probably there's. I got to remember what it is. You're going to have to go buy this. It's not like orange juice or something like that. There's a you mix orange oil. What the hell was it? Dish soap, and maybe it was just water. I'm not sure. It's either water or vinegar, one of the two. And so it was totally natural. And sprayed with that. And I mean, that's good enough. You pour that over ant hills or stuff like that. That's great. Orange oil is great for getting rid of ants in the garden, stuff like that. But go look up a recipe online. I've done this. The orange oil is not cheap. You buy a half gallon of it or whatever. I think when I bought it, it was like 16 bucks or something like that. Uh, but especially for in the garden, I don't want to be putting, because I'll get, especially in my big garden over here, I get fire ants on one side of the big garden, going in there, go pick potatoes or whatever and step in a fire ant mound. I've done that before. That ain't fun. Uh, and so I had found that because I wanted to use something that was not going to put chemicals in my soil. And that worked really well. But go look up a recipe for orange oil recipe for killing ants. I can't remember exactly what the recipe is, but that one worked. James McKay, what is my take on the judge trying to shut down the construction? I saw this afternoon. I'm just like, whatever. It's another one of these idiotic climate change environmentalist groups, uber left liberal group. If you haven't seen this, they sued the Trump administration for building this ballroom on the White House and claiming it's an environmental hazard and all this sort of crap. And some moron, libtard activist judge gave him a 14-day stay and said construction's got to stop, but he's giving, in 14 days, but he's giving the Department of Justice time to appeal it. I'm like, you start looking at this and go, it does not matter what Trump does. And we've said this over and over and over again. He could cure cancer and they'd bitch because Obama ripped out the Rose Garden to sit there and put a basketball court in. Was it Richard Nixon who put a bowling alley in? That stuff all came at the taxpayers' expense. We paid for that stuff. Okay. And there's been countless other remodels to the White House in the history of it. Okay. This one is something that is desperately needed for the premier country in the world to actually have a place where you can have a state dinner that's not in a tent. Okay. It's not costing the taxpayer a dime. The National Historical Society has basically approved the design for it. It's not like he's doing some Frank Lloyd Wright addition to the White House to make it look god awful like the Obama Library. Uh, but you got to have morons that shut this stuff down. And it's another one of these activist idiot federal judges who's like, well, I think I can disrupt the Trump organization by doing something like this. And it's just, you know, it's like I said to you guys in one of the videos, here about the No Kings protest. What are you protesting? Trump. What has he done that you're protesting? Um, uh, I'm probably not the one you want to ask about that because you have no flipping clue. You know, it's just cure cancer. They complain. That's it. Unless I mean, you swear. I mean, I said this in many other contexts before, but if Trump came out and said, like he did, $2,000 tariff checks are going out to everybody in the country, I guarantee you, if some liberal had a $2,000 check in their hand, they'd bitch that it wasn't three. That's just the way they are. They can't be happy about anything. You know, they lead miserable lives. They are miserable people. And I want nothing to do with them online, in the real world, anywhere. It's just I it, lower. I mean, they're not worth the scraping the shit off the bottom of my shoe. Sword. I had to go to Columbus, Ohio last week. It's 90 miles from me. Somalian and Muslim situation is much worse than anyone's talking about. And while in Target, there's some really smelly, rude, scary people. I haven't been to Columbus in probably 20, probably early 2000s. Columbus one time now, twice. I've been there twice. I take it back. It was a pretty city. Uh, but you're hearing a whole lot of that. Ohio seems to be the secondary place. I mean, everybody talks about New York City, but Minnesota is the big Somali stomping ground. But Ohio seems to be number two, and it gets no coverage whatsoever. And it's what a lot of people talked about before. They all realize that we can't go after the big cities. The Los Angeleses, the New Yorks, even Dallas. It's like too much press. So let's go after the second tier cities. Let's go after Minneapolis or Columbus, Plano, Texas. Granted, Plano's a suburb of Dallas. I got that, but where's the epic cities? That's somewhere down southern Texas. They're not doing the major stuff. They're trying to fly under the radar. And there was a video going around the other day. I forget the other one. Again, this is I can't think of, not Flower Mound. I can't think of what it was. But there's a video of a guy in Costco, and he goes, "The brand new Costco that's opened up in Delhi." He goes, "Oh no, just kidding. This is in whatever suburb of Dallas it was." I was just like, we're being taken over, and Biden and his cohorts allowed it to happen, and we just need to start cleaning house. No more of we're talking about the birthright citizenship and the well, if one person gets in, gee, I need to bring mom and dad, my 11 brothers, dad's 4 wives, all my stepbrothers and stepsisters, the 11 grandparents that I have because of all of this, my aunts, my uncles are, well, okay, I'm here. I need family visas for the 72 people that are also in my family. and we let them in, you know, and you wonder what's going on in this country. You wonder why people are saying we're going to lose our country. It's because we're letting everybody from these third world shitholes come here and not become Americans. They're trying to turn America into Mumbai or Bangladesh or Baghdad or wherever. And, it's like Ilhan Omar. It's like, we need to bring more Somalis. Uh, what was her name? Rashida Tlaib. You know, Palestinians and Somalis built this country. Really? When do you think this country was founded? If you were black, maybe I can give you a little bit because there was a lot of labor, i.e., slave labor back then. Or, I mean, don't tell us there's no such thing as a Palestinian. Okay, let's start with that one. All right. But it's, you guys are really doing a good job of getting my blood pressure up tonight. Tom, Pinball, are you concerned about the petrodollar falling with oil being sold through the streets in other currencies except the petrodollar? I've heard about it a couple of times. I said, what was it? An Indian tanker paid, I think it was an Indian tanker paid in yuan, uh, Chinese currency. I saw that. That's about the extent of what I've done. I mean, we know the world is trying to get rid of the dollar as the world reserve currency. We know that. This is why all of us hold gold and silver. Okay, because when the dollar collapses, we want to have something. Because I'm betting there's nobody here who has Chinese currency or Brazilian currency or Russian, rubles or anything like that. Maybe you have a couple of Canadian quarters. Okay. Maybe you've got, I don't know, a couple of pounds sterling that you got from a trip or a couple of euros. Okay. Where the rest of the world carries dollars, Americans don't carry any other currencies. Maybe you find a few pesos coming across the border down south. But yeah, we're not in the bank every third day trying to do currency swaps to play with the currency exchange. I mean, Mrs. P used to tell me, still still tells me about stories how sorry, about how they would go to the bank and change their rubles for dollars and then go change your dollars back for rubles or change your rubles for euros or whatever it is, trying to protect their money. I mean, she was there when she woke up one morning and turned on the news and go, "Oh, by the way, we devalued the currency by 50% overnight." You know, she lived through that, so that we don't do that. You talked about guys that trade on the Forex, foreign exchange. Uh, those are professional traders. I'm talking about Joe Average going to the bank and saying, "Here's $20 American. Can I have whatever the currency exchange is to give me in Japanese yen?" We don't do that. The rest of the world does. So, do I worry about the petrodollar falling? Not really. This isn't. It's not a good thing, but this isn't going to be, in my opinion, not going to be something that's going to collapse the dollar as the world reserve currency. Iran just ain't that big of a deal. C. Tavano, my thoughts on drones and chemtrails. You're going to have to give me the context. Uh, OBX Dewey, what survival crops do I recommend? Okay, we've talked about this many times. People have asked me for my top 10, whatever it would be. All right, first off, what you want to do when you're growing survival crops is what is going to get you the most food per square yard. All right, what your best yield is going to be. And so this is where you start looking into Things like potatoes, you can get a whole lot of potatoes. Peppers, you can get a whole lot of peppers off of a pepper plant. Those sorts of things. Tomatoes, how much nutrition can you get? How much bulk food can you get out of a square foot or a square yard? That's what you're looking for. You're not going to be growing radishes or something like that. You're not getting the food you want. Then the next thing you got to worry about is the calories. You cover that with the potatoes, corn. Okay, those are a couple of good ones. The next thing you want to look at is what your vitamins are. And I tell this to people, and they always look at me like I've got three heads till they go look it up. There is more vitamin C in a green pepper than there is in an orange. Okay, I'm just giving you that. You got to look at the nutritional value you're going to have. Your body functioning. You're going to need the carbs. You're going to need the proteins, beans. Okay, and you're going to need the vitamins. So if I had to give you five, I would say, well, six: corn, potatoes, beans, uh, tomato. Or that is five: corn, potatoes, beans, tomatoes, and peppers. Those those would be the ones I would call survival food because you're going to get the most carbs, most protein, most vitamins out of those, and the most production out of it to feed as many people. Plus, with those things, you can create different types of meals. You can eat corn on the cob. You can turn it into, well, I mean, obviously it's a different kind of corn, but okay, grow two different kinds of corn. Make tortillas or make cornbread. You've got some variety in there. It's like I say this all the time when people say rice and beans. Go eat rice and beans for a week and see by Saturday how sick of rice and beans you are until you can change it up a little bit. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I could do this a little longer. You're eating plain rice and beans, you're going to be going nuts by the end of the week. Uh, Janet, we the people need to talk about Trump sending troops that will not survive. I can't because that's total speculation. We've got Marines and we've got Rangers positioned to go in if need be. Whether or not they survive, I have no idea. We don't have any boots on the ground yet, as far as I know. Okay, and saying that they will not survive, that's pure speculation. So I not even gonna can't even go there. Tell the Tony DG, tell the bear story, please. Okay, so you guys were chit chatting here at the beginning, talking about sending me okra. It was the okra and spam hour picking on me and Angry Prepper for a little bit when I came in. I was sitting here in the chair and I looked out the back window here and I saw, I think, the bear run along the property line. That's about 250 feet from me, everything like that. But I mean, this was big. It wasn't a dog. Okay. And I know we've got are they black bears here. Yeah, they're not. Yeah, not grizzly bears. Okay. But I made the comment. A couple of people said somebody said something about, oh, I must have scared the bear because I was bigger than the bear. If I go back, this goes back to 1991, 1992. And I was off active duty. I was going to the college. I was still in the reserves. And for those of you guys that live down in Denton County, Texas, still there, but y'all know where Little Elm is. Okay. And as you were coming up, going into Little Elm, coming from Denton, going toward the colony, there used to be, just before the bridge there, a little house that was maybe, oh, I don't know, 1,500, 1,800 square feet. That was a bar. And at the time I was working there, it was called Martin's Landing, and it was Jim and Annie Martin that owned the place. I mean, not bad. 30 years ago, right? More than 30 years ago. I remember all this. And Jim and Annie are long past by now. They were in their 70s when they owned the place back 30 years ago. Uh, and so it was basically just a local watering hole. Guys come in, have a few beers or whatever it was, and go out fishing. Or on the weekends we'd get a good crowd in there. You'd have some local guitarist and playing or whatever. There's one pool table. It was just it was a little corner bar. It was in a house. And Jim tells me one time, he goes, "You got to come in." Whatever, one day was my day off. He says, "We're going to another bar." I'm like, "Okay, what do you mean we're going?" He goes, "They've got a wrestling bear at this bar." The hell's a wrestling bear? So we go out there and look at this thing. He goes, "I want to get this guy to come out and perform at his bar, our place, right?" So we go watch, and here it is. This is a grizzly bear. Things a little better than 8 feet tall. Okay, had a muzzle on, had gloves, if you will, that were so he couldn't claw you, and he was held back on a leash. And the guy that was holding on to him, was all of a bodybuilder, 400 pounds or whatever it was. So we're watching this. We talk to the guy. Jim hires him to come out and do it. This is on a Saturday night. Bring people in, and so we promoted on the marquee out front and everything like that. Bobo the bear or whatever the hell it was. And so you figure at this point, was it 92? So I'm about, how old was I, 36? No, 26. Take it back. Okay, so so I'm still young. And so the bear comes in, and here's this bear duck through the front door, and they're standing there, and it's like, who wants to wrestle the bear? Who wants to wrestle the bear? And nobody wanted to wrestle the bear. And so Jim looks at me, he's the boss, and he goes, "Go wrestle the bear." I'm like, nuts? So we get in there and wrestle the bear. And I mean, at the time, I was probably 205, 210, maybe. Uh, I was a beanpole. I'm a college student, can't afford to eat. And so I go in and I wrestle the bear and everything like that, try to wrestle him. 30 seconds, the bear's got me down, pinned, and I'm out. So after I break the ice, one of the good old boys down there says, "Oh, he's going to go in and wrestle the bear." And, you know, big guy, typical. The only way picture a guy that's 6 foot tall walking around in overalls and red and black plaid shirt. That's the best way I can hauling hay or something like that. Sure as shit, if this guy doesn't get up there and then pins the bear, I mean, but that was it. But yes, I have actually wrestled a grizzly bear, not out in the wild. He was on a leash and had a muzzle and everything like that. But it's a great story, and I wish it was the days of cell phone cameras because no, I don't have any pictures of it. I wish I did, but uh, that was there. There's my wrestling a bear story. Vicky Savage. Last I heard, Adolf Hitler died in Argentina. I definitely do not want to be where he is now. Actually, there was a guy, I saw this over the weekend, who claims that he is in Argentina, claims that he is Adolf Hitler, and he's been living, now 115 years old or whatever it is, claims he's Adolf Hitler. But yeah, they're, what was it? If Mossad could find, who did they find? Himmler? I forget who it was, or Ehrlichman or something like that. They found somebody in Argentina about 20 years ago or whatever. If Hitler was around, they would have found him. So yeah, no, I mean he put a bullet in his head and he's done. Unless that's another conspiracy theory, maybe he's out partying somewhere with Elvis. I don't know. Uh Yoy Victor Nikiforov. I'm butchering that name. Uh is Is it any truth that the U.S. economy could collapse depending on how this conflict works out? Oh, sure. I mean, there's anything's anything could happen. somebody decides, hey, you know what? Let's throw a couple of nukes out there, and yeah, that's going to destroy the world economy real quick. There's always a possibility. Uh, is it a again, possibility and probability? You know, it's possible I could win the Powerball. It ain't probable, but it's possible. Sure. Uh, let's see. KS1 Big Dad, 25 cents a gallon when I was a kid to fill up my buddy's mini bike. That you got I know there's plenty of you guys that got me beat by a decade or so, at least. Roy Deaver in the 60s, gas was 19.9 a gallon. There was a price war in my area where it went to 9.9 cents for a short period when police shut it down. I didn't get my driver's license till 1982. So, I mean, figure I was born in 66. So, yeah, you got 2 decades on me at that point, or at least 15 years. Uh, okay, bunch of gas. Somebody said, "How high do I think gas prices will go?" I gotta find back where it was. I saw something today that the national average went over $4. Uh, how high it can go, I can't give you a guess. I mean, you keep hearing these people talk about $200 barrel of oil, $300 barrel of oil. We see that we're going to see some crazy prices. Okay, no question. Uh, but that's the bigger question. And don't think that Washington is not looking at that going, okay, we got to make sure we don't do anything that does upset the oil trade in the world, because you want to talk about losing the midterms instantly. Yeah, let's have $10 a gallon of gas. And the Republicans just may walk out of Washington and say, we'll see you in a couple of generations because you're not voting us back. All right. That's, there's more to managing this war than just, gee, who's the Ayatollah of the day and how do we kill him? They've got to look at the economic ramifications. They've got to look at the collateral damage. Unfortunately, eventually we'll look at how we're going to go in and rebuild Tehran, but how much we're going to pay for that. But yeah, it's just a matter. You're watching oil prices. I don't know. We went from what, about $80 a barrel when we were paying here 240, 250. And now we're at what, I think it was about 114 or something I saw at one point today. And, I haven't checked the price of gas since I got it a few days ago. Uh, we were at 349. So that was up $1.10, $1.20 on, is that $34? So, do the math and figure it's going to go exponentially like that. We go up another $34 and the price of oil go up to $150 a barrel. All right, then I'm paying damn near $5 a gallon, which means California's probably paying 10. So Tennessee's got some of the cheapest gas in the country. I still never forget when Mrs. P and I flew out here to look at this house. We were living in Vegas and gas was like $4.09 a gallon. And we drove out to Sevierville. We landed in Nashville and had to drive because we tried getting direct flights into Knoxville. Let's forget it. So we landed in Nashville and made the 4-hour drive out here. And we pulled in across the street from our hotel, and I said, "You got to be kidding me!" And Mrs. P says, "What?" I said, "Gas is $1.90 something." I said, "Gas is half what it is back in Vegas." Yeah. So, gas price. Snake bite, I agree. It's time we take care of America, period. Time we take care of the American people. Put the American people ahead of all the illegals. Put the American people ahead of the Israelis or the Ukrainians or the Europeans or anybody. Why is it that our money is good enough, but we don't get any of the benefits of our money. I mean, again, we go back to all of this. The infrastructure bill, has a single road been fixed? A bridge been fixed? Nope. But we got to pay for all that money, print all that money for the infrastructure bill, right? So we got all the inflation, we got to pay for it. Didn't get anything out of it. That's my problem. Victor Nikiforov again. What can I do to keep mice out of the house and the car? Uh, Mouse traps, at least in the house, will work. Uh, find where they're coming in. That's the easiest thing. And then put mothballs in that area. Uh, where mice like to come in, at least around me, are around gas lines. Okay, you got a gas line that drills up through the floor, like under our stove. Okay, the propane line comes up under. I mean, mice can get through that. Quarter of an inch, half an inch space. They'll get through that. Put a couple of mothballs around there. It'll keep the mice away. Put the mouse trap, down underneath the deal. That helps. Cat is a good idea. Cats like it. We saw our black racer when we were out in the yard the other day. Mama Snake was out patrolling the yard again. It's like, have a nice day, Mama Snake. Go out and eat all the mice, no problem. But mothballs work well as a deterrent, not to catch them. Uh, does it say 8:11? Oh, 8:51. Okay, yeah. Vicky, in my opinion, the hardest lesson for a generous person is that they are not responsible for the consequences of someone else's choices. Thank you. Yes. No, we are not responsible for the stupidity of other people. And I'm not going to take responsibility for it. Nobody else should. And we need to start remembering that as a country, if my neighbor leaves the windows open in his car in a rainstorm, it's not my responsibility to go dry the interior of his car out. Nor is it any of our responsibility to take care of, again, Europe or Israel or anybody else. You want US weapons? Good. Start buying them. Stop expecting them for free. You want US troops there? Here's an idea, Germany. Why don't you pay their salary rather than me pay it? Because they're not working for me. I don't care if your country collapses. If you can't protect your country, you have no business being a country. Oof. Josh Brazil, I paid $7.09 a gallon for diesel today. I wanted to cry. I would too. That's nuts. Mountain Goat says borax and sugar kills ants. Yep, there's another good one. That I used. The problem that I had with borax. I tried that with the fire ants, and it didn't work with the fire ants. They didn't care about going to eat it or whatever it was. So the liquid, because it went down into the nest, was what worked better. But yes, borax and sugar does kill the ants, but they've got to go eat it and then take it into the queen and share it and all that sort of stuff. Jason K. Ma for fire ants, full boiling teapot poured down the anthill works every time. Too. Yeah, I guess boil them to death. Yeah, there's no chemicals in boiling water, so I'll give you that one. That'll work. Let's see. Tom, it's a bunker that's going on in the East Wing. Donations are from AI companies. It's going to be a data center. Yeah, I've heard one story about there's a bunker underneath the ballroom. I have heard that. I have not, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I have not heard a peep one about it's going to be a data center. I haven't been to DC to see how big this thing is, but I'm not thinking under a ballroom is going to be enough for a data center. I mean, they're talking about building these data centers that are the size of Amazon warehouses, the ballroom ain't that big. Hillbilly Homestead, you and me both. I want to see America take care of our own, especially our vets. You and me both. To do. Prepper Rebel says lots of vitamin C in prepper and peppers. Yeah, lots of vitamin C in preppers. Eat your local prepper. Uh, no. Mike Boggs, why is the local, state, and federal government ignoring the people still suffering from Hurricane Helene in the remote areas of Western North Carolina mountains? I don't have an answer. Okay. Uh, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're talking now a year and a half ago that Helene hit. We all, well, all of us together put together for that. Uh, but sure, I will give you this that rebuilding doesn't happen quickly. You know, insurance takes a while to pay off. You know, a home builder can't go out there and say, "Oh yeah, you know what? We're just going to build 70 new homes right here, and poof, in a weekend they're up." Uh, you know, rebuilding infrastructure, everything. I did. I would have to say it's just time, but I don't. You know, Diane would be somebody who'd be better having an answer for that one. I mean, you know, remember Diane? I mean, she's here tonight. She lives there, you know, in the Newport area at least. Uh, but you know, Newport, Greenville, everything, you know, some of the stuff around Asheville and the Blue Ridge Mountains and all that sort of stuff, and they got crushed. And I mean, go through everywhere. Look on a map. This is a pretty big area that got wiped out. And you're not talking about an area that has a lot of wealth in it. You know, so they didn't have all the big name companies to go in and do that. And you know as well as I do, insurance companies aren't going telling some construction company, yeah, don't worry about it, whatever it costs, rebuild it. They're like, how much are you paying for a 2x4? What's that box of nails cost? Nope, sorry, can't use those. Those are too expensive. Yeah. Krista Cat, Walmart has a 4-pack of weather radios for 60 bucks, AM, FM, and separate Nova band. Got a pack for myself and each child. There you go. I mean, they're not walkie talkies or anything like that, but certainly weather radios with AM, FM is going to be great to have. Not necessarily in an SHTF situation because there ain't going to be anybody broadcasting. But for springtime, you know, for the storms, yeah, that's a good thing to have. I mean, 60 bucks for 4 radios. Okay. There you go. 15 bucks a radio. Get with your mag. Each person chip in 15 bucks, buy a 4-pack. Here's one for you, one for you, one for you, one for you. Good, we're done. You know, cheap, work that way. Lamb is the night. What just posted on Fox News? I do not know. I can look real quick, see if anything's strange up going on. Trump to address the nation Wednesday night with an important update on Iran is the headline right now. So maybe that's what they're talking about. Tom Pinball, just to thank you for the 5 crops to grow. You're more than welcome. Probably shut to the bottom because there's nowhere I got through every question. See if I can find another one in here real quick. Old radio dude. In the 60s, my uncle used to use gasoline to spray down bugs on his farm because it was cheap. Oh, it's got to be calm. I'm like, what the hell is that scratching? Copper by the back door scratching on the mat, trying to find a place to lay. It's like, tell me I got possum in the house or something. I did get everything. All right. Well, I guess that is it. Because it is 8:59. It'll be 9 o'clock by the time the time delay gets to you guys. All right, y'all. Have a good one. Happy end of March. See you in the morning. Bye out.